Divine love and blessings to all subscribers and listeners. My name is Gillie Priest, and this is Gillie Priest Revolutionary Radio. In the last episode that I did, I covered the reasons for my absence from the programming for a few weeks, and I covered the facts and circumstances that surrounded my imprisonment in the United States for 45 years. Now, part of the central tenet of those of us who have been incarcerated throughout Babylon, and I can speak directly to the incarceration throughout the United States, and more specifically in New York State, is the part that the Rastafari movement played in our survival, our growth, our development in the past, the present, and it certainly will in the future. To put it bluntly, Rastafari was the foundation on which most of us stood, and the virgins who are still within the prison system still stand upon the tenets of Rastafari. But before I get into the reason that I want to develop today surrounding the Rastafari concept and its worldview, I want to take us back in time. Let's just kind of, in a summary way, kind of identify and address this issue that we call Rastafari. That a lot of people have their own overstanding of. But even within our own individual standing, there is a certain historical fact that surrounds the development of the movement, which we all have to face. If we can start whether in the late 1400s or the early 1500s, the Rastafari movement is not a new movement. Because at no time can a man says humanity has never been in the struggle for freedom. Rastafari is about freedom. So there is nothing new about Rastafari. We can only speak about Rastafari in certain dispensation, and we can identify different dispensation of the movement. And there is this tendency to address Rastafari just from this dispensation, where some may say from in the 1930s. Another dispensation, you can say, from the first African was captured and placed on the ship, the Rastafari movement began then. But I want to take you on a journey for a minute so we can put this thing in a little better perspective. If you read the different translation of the Book of the Dead, the scroll that was founded in Egypt in the 1800s and was translated by a British translator, by I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Budge. When you get into the translation of the hieroglyphics in which the Egyptian language was written then, and we're talking going back 4, 5, 6,000 years ago, you come upon the word Rasta. R-A-S-T-A, some spelling R-A-S-T-U. You get into the meaning of the word through the translations. It means a passage from darkness to light. It is also meant as another meaning, a passage from death to life, which there is no difference between those two. It still is exemplifying a journey from unconsciousness or subconsciousness to the point of consciousness. That meaning that was given to that word through the Egyptian hieroglyphics to the word Rasta is the same meaning it has today, 6,000-7,000 years later. Rastafari is a journey from darkness to light, from captive to liberation, from death to life, in all aspects, mentally, physically, spiritually, consciously. So Rastafari is nothing new. It may be new to some, but it is not new to all. Rastafari is that concept that human being engendered within their consciousness from the beginning of time. That humanity as a collective and man as an individual must be free, should be free. So that's from the beginning of that dispensation. Now let's bring it up to this dispensation of the 1830s. Let's go to 1834. Right? Why begin the reasoning at that dispensation? Because it was at that dispensation that when chattel slavery was abolished throughout the British Empire. And as a little side note, that the empire does not want to acknowledge, and a lot of people don't want to acknowledge. But it was the Sam Sharp War in Montego Bay in the early 1800s that led to the abolition of chattel slavery throughout the British Empire and later throughout the world with the last the Portuguese empires. Right? So we're not going to get into about no abolitionists and no the good grace of the British. We know what led to our liberation. Bloodshed run throughout this island. And the cost of maintaining it surmounted the cost. The cost of fighting the war surmounted the cost of maintaining slavery. So they had to adjust their thing. But that's not how we want it. I just want to lay those contexts before I get to the point. 1834, let me say, we're free from slavery, even though we're still within the British Empire. Alright. If you go through the whole transgression period of slavery and you come right up to 1834, Babylon and their underlings were who dictated to us how we should live. They use the Bible, they use doctrine, they use academia, they use every angle that you could come from mentally, physically, and spiritually to subdue us as a people, to make us into the perfect slave. So once slavery was abolished, and we're speaking within that chattel slave level, we're not saying slavery is even abolished today. We're not talking about, we're dealing with different transition of slavery today, but we're keeping it on the chattel slavery. Coming out of chattel slavery, who was there to tell us as a collective people in this Western Hemisphere what it means to be a man? What does it mean to be a woman? These are questions. How were we to rear our children? How were we to interpret our environment so we could live the most efficiently within our predicament and circumstances? None was there to teach us. There may have been individuals within certain individual community that was able to impart a certain degree of knowledge to help that community or that family or that segment of the place. But as a collective whole, who was there for us? You think the school system that they enrolled us in under colonialism was there to liberate us? No. It was there to maintain the system for the benefit and the purpose of the British Empire. So there was no liberation in pursuing the so-called knowledge that were being dispensed throughout the British school system. So we look and we say people who started to question. It started out of a fundamental question. Could such a calamitous history of a people be for no reason? Could such a calamitous history of a people not prophesied? Those were questions a few people within our community started to ask within their own limited understanding. You see, but there's a thing in Rastafari, that say there's a natural mystic will blow through the ear, man. And if you listen, you can hear it. So we have some virgins who emerge out of the oppressed community. Right? Can't remember all of them names. Leonard Howell, Robert Hines, Archibald Dunkley, and there are a few others. The Rass historian, right? Born Jazz. These brethren start to ask certain fundamental questions that were newly evolving out of the mind of an oppressed people. And the brethren turned to what they were familiar with. They turned to scriptures. They turned to history. They turned to the latest news that were being published in the British papers, trying to garner understanding of where we were as a people, bringing their own limited understanding to the reasoning capacity as the brethren gathered. Right? Today, we can use the mind that they help us to develop that we have today and criticize them. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not say people cannot do that. I make you know say Gillie priest not going to do that. I go and try use my wisdom and go forward into that time and see what they were working with to try to get a better understanding of where I stand today. So the brethren them do them little research and do them little reading and put 1 and 2 together and them come up and them say, alright, Marcus Garvey utter certain utterances. And we're not going to get into whether Marcus Garvey said it or not. We're going to say all the brethren them take it. The brethren them say, Marcus Garvey said, look to this, your black thing shall be gone. And that's your salvation begin. Right? You must also understand that a lot of these early Rastafari brethren, they come out of Poco Church. Enough of them jump Poco. Enough of them jump with them called Mali. One of them religion where them bring from out of the Congo. Because enough people don't know, black people, there are some black people who came to Jamaica after 1860. Around the same time, because this is what led them to come down here. First they tried to bring the Indians to work in the sugarcane field because a lot of blacks after slavery walk off of the cane piece, gone up in the mountains, gone plant them own yam and banana. Tired for work for other people. So they decided to bring in some Indians to do the cheap work. That's where the word coolie come from, cheap laborer. Around the same time, 1860, 1868, whatever, they bring in Chinese. Chinese come in for the cheap work too. Discrepancies amongst the different communities start to develop. And the black people them who used to still work upon the sugar and banana plantation. So listen, we don't want no more other people when they look like us to come down here. Because it will start some racial configuration in the place. So then burn down some banana field, burn down some cane field and say none of this now go on. So the British say, alright, that's what I want. But we are going to find some people who are going to work for almost free. But we have to give them some form of compensation because we say slavery is abolished. And I saw them going to the Congo. And by bringing them down to the Congo, that is how a lot of the part of the Poco religion come down here in Jamaica. And the Poco jumping and the Poco drumming is out of where the Naya Bingi drumming developed. And that's why Count Azzy and all of the man them out of East will come from out of St. Thomas and settle in Eastern Kingston, them become the first Nyabingi drummers in a Rastafari. Because it came from out of the Congo. Alright? So the people them there at this nascent stage of trying to liberate their own mind. Using what them know and what them familiar with. The Bible was one of the things that they was most familiar with because it was indoctrinated and beaten into our skulls from our first encounter with the Babylonians. No, but don't confuse the situation now. Christianity reached Africa before it reached Europe. But that's not the angle the reason it's coming from. A lot of us who became captive in the West to the Babylonians in the 1400s and the 1500s and so forth, Christianity was not a part of our mental state. So that's the type of Christianity I'm talking about. The one that came appendage to slavery. So using what the early Rastafari Virgins was familiar with, them turn to scripture. And within the scripture, them get the doctrine, the second coming of the Messiah. We're not going to question whether it is correct or is not correct. We have to show you how the mental state of the early virgins developed. Then, putting that in conjunction with what Marcus Garvey said, when the crowning of His Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie come in the 30s, in Ethiopia, the virgins them say, see him there, see the Messiah there, see the man there where the scripture point to. And that was how His Majesty became one of the central tenets, if not the most central core of the Rastafari movement. Coming out of a state of nascent consciousness that was being early developed. When a man consciousness are developing at most early stage in a virgin, it's like you're looking through a curtain and see a silhouette, you know. You're not seeing the image clear enough. But where a man could once tell you there was no one behind the curtain or there was nothing behind the curtain, now you can see the silhouette, so you know there is something behind the curtain. You know that. At one time you did not even have the level of consciousness to notice that there was something behind the curtain. It was those virgins, those early virgins, Howard, Hilbert, Robert Hines, Archibald Dunkley, and others. Them start to see the shadowy figure behind that facade that was placed in front of our face with all this white Jesus and white prophet and white everything. These were the first early virgins who started to tell us we can recreate our mind. We can have a new vision, a new understanding, a new interpretation of things, even though it was shadowy to them. So the virgins them start to propagate the teachings of His Majesty. So His Majesty teaching became the first conscious level doctrine that was being given to people who were in captive for over 400 years, trying to show where this is how a man live, this is how a woman live, this is how you raise your children, this is how you deal with your community. See our levels of moral understanding here. See our levels of ethical understanding here. And other such things. And that's how we start. But going back to the silhouette visions where the elders them see them attach that silhouette vision to the concept of God because of the attachment to scriptures. But let me tell you something, virgins and sisters. When you come with a highly developed consciousness today, but none of you can tell me say that's how it begins. with all his shortcomings, with all of the early virgin shortcomings, your great understanding and level of consciousness where you live today, at this how it start. Because at them man the first come tell we, at least in a free nation, so we can think different. So we can look and think different. So we can interpret things from our own understanding, even with our own limited mental capacity. You can run and you can run and you can run, but you can't hide from the reality there. And this is how it begins. Now, part of the theological concept we're getting imbued in the Rastafari music was because of the early virgins, whatever levels of indoctrination that Babylon was able to impose on them, they retain a certain interpretation and a certain overstanding in order so that them can propel the reasoning forward. So let's get to this God concept. There was a time in history, even when you read biblical history, and we can go before that, when every God was a tribal God, meaning every tribe had its own God. That's when you read scripture here, the God of Israel. It never said the God of humanity. It said the God of Israel. It said the God of the Canaanite. It said the God of the Egyptians. And all and every ethnic group had their own God. There was no international God. There was no imperialistic God. When man go to war, when two tribes go to war, it was one tribe God versus the next tribe God. And if you get in a scripture, and when I go debate whether there was a historical Jesus or there was not a historical Jesus, that is not for this reasoning. But when Jesus went by the well and the woman said, give me some of that knowledge, let me touch your coat, let me eat some of the food. Him say, when me have come for the people of Israel and not for the dogs. And the woman said, even the dog have to eat from the master's table. So even Jesus himself make you know, say, when me a teach and preach for the Israelite, go find your own God. Make your own God guide you. And if you read scriptures, it was only after the death of Jesus or Yehuda or whoever name you want to give, and we will use the context of the biblical history because of the context that we as a people they get enslaved under. It was like 60 years later, all the man them where that trod with this Jesus start go out in the world and start internationalize them God. So after a period like 70 years, after the burden of the temple of Israel, the God of Israel was no longer the God of Israel. But them start preach and make you know, say, the God of Israel is now the God for the whole world. So it was only yesterday, with this concept about, me I talk from the Babylonians' perspective, it was only yesterday God get internationalized. And the early virgins bought into that theological concept at varying degree, depending on the level of understanding of each of the early messengers of Rastafari. We now go back to when the first Egyptian Pharaoh declared there was one God. That's not the context of the reason. The context of the reason that come out of the biblical doctrine that was first imbued into the virgins that later led to the development of the Rastafari movement within this dispensation. Keep the reason in another context. So once you start applying all other context, then we appear confusion and get creative. So here we have a people that come out of bondage, that come out of slavery, that try to search and find their own way. They want to know how we dress, they want their own music, they want to have their own concept, they want to have their own God, even if we don't have our own God theological concept to develop yet. So the man them start calling, okay, since we read the Bible and said there was a God, and there is a judgment, and God will come back. It's His Majesty. So you have this development now within the movement of the concept of His Majesty is God. I'm going to show you how enough of us is living in confusion. A lot of us, when we speak of the term God, just to show you how much we buy into the Babylonian concept of God, we apply what Babylon say a God should do. That is how you apply it to Selassie, and then you use it to refute Selassie. You don't come up with a new concept of God when you challenge Rastafari. You use the concept of God where Babylon tell you the concept of God is. And then you apply that concept of God as a measuring stick against his imperial majesty, and you say, Selassie can't be God. But what if you did just change your concept of God to your reality? Now, let me give you an example what I mean by changing the concept. Because what Europeans say a God is, you don't have to believe it. The Japanese don't buy into that concept of what God is. You know the Japanese concept of God is? The sun come down and give birth, and the emperor of Japan is God. And them still can create car and train and do magnificent engineering with that concept today. See? The Chinese not buy into the concept of God where them teach in a Western theological concept. So there is no universal concept of God. But we as a captive people for so many years, we have bought into the concept and the theological concept of what Westerners says God, that we use it as a measuring stick for anybody will declare a different God. So make we get back to His Majesty now. One time I reasoned with a brethren, and him said to me, say, Gillie, you're a smart brethren, I can't believe say you say Selassie a God, you know. I say, yeah? So I say, oh, you say a God? Him say, no, that me a talk about. Me a talk about what you say. Because him say, if Selassie a God, how could so much famine there in Ethiopia and people are starved, and the continent of Africa mash up, and the continent, how could Selassie be God and that going on? That's what him said to me, you know. You know what I said to him? I said, forget about Selassie. I say, you believe in a God? Him say, yes. I say, alright, make we use your God. How could your God be God and all that still are going in Africa? Give me an answer to that. Him say, you go on, man, you go on, you just nice with words. I say, nah, man, I know semantics. I say, forget about Selassie. Your concept is that Selassie is not God. You say you believe in a God. And if you tell me, say, man a God, if man a God, how that are going in Africa? If Allah a God, how that are going in Africa? If Jesus a God, how that are going in Africa? Forget about Selassie. Give me an answer to that. Now, I could change the concept of God. Just a reasoning. You don't have to believe in it. And I'm going to use an easily understandable example to make me develop the reasoning. A man or a woman have a child. And that child developed in the image of the teachings and the doctrines of that parent. Why cannot that parent be God in the context of that child? If I raise my son and I raise my daughter within a certain doctrinal consciousness, teaching them certain things, and then that child grow into that consciousness, isn't that child in my image? Couldn't that be God created man in His image? Where is the contradiction in that reason? If there is a community leader that's leading a people, whether through a doctrinal formation or through just personal teaching, and you raise that community from the darkness of, you can remember one thing in a family: ignorance is death, you know. Ignorance is death, and consciousness is life. There is no other. Death and life. That's why when you read scripture, I tell you about the walking dead, and it tell you about let the dead bury the dead. You think it's a man in the ground, get up and bury the next man and put them under the ground. It means let the mental dead deal with the mental dead, and let those of life, which is consciousness, deal with those of life. Let the dead bury the dead. It means let the man who is mentally dead go and consort with other mentally dead. So when you talk about life and death, you're talking about ignorance and enlightenment. So when the early Rastafari virgins start to get the teachings of His Majesty, it is these teachings that brought our nation and our people to life. It is that doctrinal teachings that raise up the bones that Elijah and Isaiah spoke about, and say all the dead bones in the valley shall rise up and live. Coming out of slavery and the inner slavery and the inner colonialism, we were nothing but dry bones. When we start to get the doctrines, the teachings of His Majesty, we start to teach you how to live. Because we never have nobody else to look to. Everybody else try to hold it down. It was that teachings that gave us life. It was that teachings that gave us breath. It is that teachings that gave us consciousness. That today, all of us individual are conscious on different level, alive on different level. Some of us higher than some of us. But me I will tell you one thing. If you come off of a piece of island there, that's where it starts. Even just your rebelliousness, when the little young youth them in Jamaica call themselves the unruly, and that's how it starts for the whole of it. To be unruly to Babylon dictates. Because Babylon whole mechanism was to teach us how to obey them. And we said no, we are the unruly. We don't listen to none of that. We are rebel. And His Majesty doctrine, whether we like it or not, whether we want to say His Majesty have shortcomings or not, you can't say all that. Because His Majesty have shortcomings. Any man we're going to be an example to a nation of a people, and going to set example in both good and bad. There is no weakness in having a sharpness. It's how you deal with it, it's how you address it. So that teaching that was first given to us by the elders, within their whole limited understanding. And that's where it begins, family. And that's where it starts, you can't run from it. And if we push aside the Babylonian concept of what them say God supposed to look like, where God supposed to function, where God supposed to do, but you can't give and say, yeah man, I man is created in the image of His Imperial Majesty Selassie, because of Him doctrine create way. We not apply no God Babylonian God concept about where God supposed to be. The human mind have the ability to transgress against all concept if it choose to. I'm not using transgress in a negative way, but to go over, to cross over, to challenge the concept of God that was bequeathed to us in a freedom theological thing. Me not buy none of that. Me have my own concept of God. And my concept of God allow me to say His Majesty of God, because I am teachings and Him examples both good and bad. A man cannot escape that equation of good and bad. No man can escape that equation. A man will say, may I listen to a reasoning? And a man will say, tell me what His Majesty do for you. Or tell me what His Majesty do for black people. Or tell me what His Majesty do. Thing there. Right. And He may condemn His Majesty. Condemn Him from all angles. You see, in Virgin, when man out with is a big time rapist in the community, you know, but in Virgin still. And the Virgin there, he might rob and murder and kill every day. But him not have one word of condemnation for him. Yeah. But a man who come to Jamaica and build a school. A man who come to Jamaica and tell us we can lift up out of poverty and ignorance. A man who set the example and show us we can take up arms and fight for liberation. That goodness will conquer evil. That war must reach liberation. We spend more time challenging him than the evil where we embrace every day around us. So me personally, me can say Selassie are God. And you know why me can say that? Because I have a different concept of what God is. I have the Babylonian theological concept. I use that as a measuring stick where Babylon tell me, say, yeah, hear me? This is where God look like, you know, and this is where God's supposed to do. And this is where God is. And then me run around the earth and I talk about, let me see your God. And when the man they show me God, me put my measuring stick. I said, no, I don't got that because it don't measure up to where Babylon says God. So you tell me, say, you escape Babylon and you use Babylon measuring stick. But yet, you escape Babylon. And this is not a negative criticism of your concept of God. But just try to show you the measuring stick where you are used. You go in enough places in Africa, the ancestors are God. Why? Because the ancestors set the example and the doctrine and the teaching of how they should live. Of course that is their God. Can I go back to the time where God wasn't universal? And what did God get universal? God get universal with imperialism and colonialism and exploitation. Where God go come and say, your God not good enough. And me alone for all. Yet him call himself in the name of his God, the people them consciousness when him come out of. So there's so much confusion. But confusion is good in another sense there. You know why? Because it has come out of searching. It has come out of reasoning. It has come out of trying to find the right path. Yeah man, so enough place me go unapologetically. You say, yeah man, Selassie a God man. Oh, you say Selassie a God, yeah man, I feel doctrine raised me from darkness to light man. And that is my concept of God. That which uplifts you is your God man. And if it uplifts the community, it is the God's community. And if it uplifts the nation, that doctrine is the God for that nation. So enough time, you see in a prison, people love to argue about God, you know. When people in a desperate situation, God is one of them favorite topic. Because them desperate. Them are look at them are trying to show them God, so them loyal to them. So them go around and challenge other people with other gods. A man will come and I say, yo Gillie, you want to know say boy, I say my youth, I don't care about you and your God, you know. I have mine. And mine is not yours. So hold yours and make me hold mine. So I'm going to show you when you internationalize the concept of certain God, or it impose this imperialistic concept on the man. Let me give you an experience when I walk out of prison. I did with a yard man, a Jamaican when I know from Jamaica. We go to a little school together. Yeah. Years later now, him turned Muslim in a prison. And you see the doctrine and the God where him know adhere to. You know what I tell him say? Even though him know me from the early 1960s, if an Arab come in at the prison where he meet for the first time and him have a slice of bread, and him have to broke it and share it with one away. If we are dead for hungry, him have to give it to the Arab before him give it to me. I want to think on that, you know. I want to think on that. This youth when me and him come from short pants days. Him accept an allegiance we say. Him have to share first with that man we meet yesterday. That me who lived good with him for 60 years. You want something more treacherous than that? And I'm going to flip the script and show you otherwise. If two Arabs come from the land of Arabia or wherever they come from, and one is a Christian and one is a Muslim, and me there is a black Muslim, you say if you have one slice of bread for the Muslim one, I'm going to give to the Christian Arab first before I give to me as a Muslim, when doctrine same for them. Part of the weakness for us as black people, we adhere to foreign doctrine more than all the foreigners adhere to their own doctrine. Yeah. So when we're talking about Rastafari in this dispensation, let's never forget that the virgins who first in this dispensation start to reach within their own collective consciousness to interpret our travails throughout this history. They had a veil over their eyes that they could barely see through, but they were searching. And once they start to see the shape of the silhouette that's behind the curtain, that's what they explain to us. When we of the next generation now gain a certain knowledge, our duty is supposed to be try to see more clearly through the veil, or to remove the veil period. But you know what we do? We spend most of the time, instead of we attack the veil and try to see the silhouette, we try to say that virgin did this and that virgin did that and that virgin did never did, and a waste of time that family. You know, me I listen to a video over there where my virgin I say badass out of England, and he bring on a virgin from America. Can't remember what the virgin name, bro something. And me I listen to the virgin, and God know man, me feel sorry for him. Because me can't hear him appeal for help. Me can't hear him appeal for changes. Me can't hear him desire for the upliftment of people, especially in America. And when me I listen to it, me not lie, me I say, look on the wasted energy, man. Look on the wasted energy. Me listen to the brethren. I know I come from the goodness of my heart. But him spend too much energy attacking his own camp. Him spending too much energy attacking the people that him say consciousness is not if a person's consciousness is not developed, how can you attack them? How can you blame them when you use the same one saying your consciousness is one of darkness? Who do you know that attack darkness other than lighting the lamp? You think you can attack darkness with words? Do you believe you can attack darkness by pointing out the darkness? No, family. You light a candle, man. You light a candle. I love how the brethren talk, because I can see the depth of his appeal in his language. I see it. I see says I youth want changes. I see says I youth want development. But I see how we also get entangled in this same mirage silhouette. I may understand him. I may appreciate everything where him say. And if me did there somewhere within him circumference, would I say, yes, brethren, me understand what I say. But make we light the lamp. Yeah. Make we light the lamp. See? Because at this where the struggle begin. Spending a whole hour talk about whether people are his and them people are this and them people with that and them people with that. It come in like, I remember in a reality upon the battlefield with the family. So me and you in the trenches with the gun. And instead of we have focus on the enemy in front of we. all you tell me about or me I tell you about is how you in the trenches are scratch. And how you laugh. Yeah, me I do all of them negatively, but I don't see your energy for the family. Your energy for them in front of you. I just say it for them. Just like when man in the ghetto. And the man them are going to make certain move in the ghetto and what the man do. I don't want to walk with you and come tell me about what your girl do last night. A distraction that. You have to find a different occasion for that. And how that one day give you bun. And how that pitney them maybe and not feel your pitney. And how the man never lend you the car last. My youth, if you are going to take care of something, I'm going to take care of the thing now. Make we put your consciousness for where we are going to take care of the man. And this is your mind for them. It don't mean say all of the things and what you're saying that the distraction is not true. And that may I say, we can't even for conversation and say it is true. But we're in the trenches. Like we keep the focus. And when we sit down with the man who is unconsciousness, let us try to enlighten him. You don't enlighten a man or a woman by attacking them. You teach them. If you point out the fallacy of their ways and action, the next word will come out of your mouth is supposed to be how you correct it. Just like we get to youth say, don't tell me not go down the road go rob the man if you not give me some food. Me no want to hear your foolishness. And when you real talk, if you are going to tell the youth to stop rob the liquor shop, make sure the next word will come out of your mouth. You know a man up the road that can give you employment. Or may I give you advance some money, go buy something and sell it. That's how we get the people want to hear. That's the universal consciousness we are talking about. So, going back to the reason for the Rastafari development. If you ever change your mind, because remember, you know, the brain, if you a lot of us, you know, we come from Africa with a certain consciousness imposed upon our brain that was imposed for thousands of years by our community to show we how to live. And when we come in Babylon, or even before we come in Babylon, but we start to encounter certain experience and things, that consciousness they get wiped off of the brain. Just like when you could have buy a cassette tape and you could have wipe off all of the original music on the tape. Like I said, we'd have a Michael Jackson tape, brand new, just bust it out of plastic. You hear Michael Jackson on it. But if I take that tape and wipe off all of the songs that Michael Jackson put on it, but the label remain the same, you know, the label remain Michael Jackson. But I tape on Bob Marley on the tape, and I give it to a youth that grew up. I'm going to hear Bob Marley songs on the tape, but I'm going to call it Michael Jackson. And that's what happened to our brain. Our brain was wiped clean. Not only in the Western Hemisphere where we came in captive, but even in Africa. Brain wiped clean. And the Babylonian them tape on a brand new concept. Because let me tell you so. When you go to liquor school and them teach you to read and write, that's the precursor to indoctrination, you know. Because we're going to make sure say you can read and write so we can indoctrinate you. Right, so them teach you to read and write. Then as you move up from the primary level to the secondary level, you start to get the indoctrination now. You start to study sociology. You start to study psychology. You start to study theology. You start to study all these different ologies. And the more you study it, is the more they reward you. And by you reach the doctoral level, or you reach the master's level, or you reach the baccalaureate level, and them certify you. If you find the average person that graduated through these institutions, all they repeat back to you is what the professors told them and what they garnered from textbooks. They have no original ideas. Now there's a flip side to that also. That don't mean that the ignorant man is at any higher level of consciousness. Because the ignorant man who never went through no schooling can be just as stupid as the man that went through the schooling. So you find a little man on the corner now. You just have to know where him brain there. Where him brain there. You have some little fallacious concepts that him attached to him manhood. That when him do all these little fallacies, him is so proud of it just as the man with them doctorate degree. And the two of them still lead to the CML. So when we speak of Rastafari, let's not look at Rastafari from the concept of Babylonian theological concept. Because you know what's funny? Even the man who applied the Babylonian theological concept of God, down on the level of what we them, he have no understanding of the theological concept, but him claim say him a walk around and measure other God with him. Because him have no knowledge of Christian history. None whatsoever. All them know are where the preacher them preaching at the church. Sometimes even the preacher we are preaching at the church don't know where the doctrine come from. Because within all churchical order there is an hierarchical structure with doctrinal interpretation that will come from above and come down. And when you go into the archbishop colleges, and if you notice most great Christian religious order, they have their own universities and they have their own fathers of the church who interpret and impose our doctrine. So when you see the little reverend down the road, say I'm not the Presbyterian or the Methodist or the Baptist, not even him understand the doctrine, you know. And if you want to keep getting paid, him better adhere to the doctrine whether I believe in it or not. Because it is the fathers of the church who hand down theological prescribes. So when we don't also apply Babylonian theological doctrine, where we think we understand, and I run with that measuring stick and I say, this is where God's supposed to be, and this is where God's supposed to be, you're there in the same barrel as the man. But hold on to the concept that you challenge. Yeah. So when we are struggle for consciousness, never let us fool ourselves in believing that we have attained it. No. Because you cannot attain full knowledge. Because every day earth reveals new knowledge. Every day earth reveals a new interpretation. Every day earth reveals a new understanding. That's why you call it life. Life ever grow. Life ever shows curveball. Life ever give us nuances to that which we think we know. Me a reason with a man was there, and we are talking about truth, and he might tell me what is truth and what is not truth. And me I say, brethren, do you know that truth is fluid? Do you know that what is true today is not true tomorrow? You know how much a bus in a school get we ask, bus, talk about Jamaica is 4,411 square miles, and when they throw up satellite 200 years later, they chop off piece of the island. So I'm to all them picnic, you know, we get them ass bus for 200 years. And people will fail exam, drop out of school. Eh? Make you really want this truth just circumstantial, family. So what I say? So let's respect the mind in knowing that the mind, which is a evolutionary part of the brain, is ever growing, is ever expanding. Let us use what works for us today. And if we have to change it tomorrow, we change it tomorrow. We're not married to nothing and talk about that is permanent. No. It only consists of permanency as long as it is usable. Yeah. So, going back, in order to close out this reasoning here, for this time here at least, is knowing that the level of consciousness that each of us has attained today on an individual basis especially coming out of the region where we come from. Trust me, brother, you drink from the early wells that the early founding fathers of the movement dig up and make water spring up. The water may have not have been totally clean, but you sip from it and it partially quench your thirst. Today, you have a higher developed consciousness, some of us. You can see more clearly. Some of us have been able to move the wheel and able to project ourselves into the future. Because that means that because you know where you stand, you can see the future. But the man who know where he stand and can see the future, he have a clearer vision. But you still have to respect the man who know where he stand, even if he don't have the visit to see the full vision. So let me say. So, me no meet a man yet in a creation when me would have ever question him Rasta conscious mind. Me not do that. Him reach where him reach. Let me tell you something, as a side example. Somebody at prison and if certain good laws change will make it possible for certain man go home. One of the biggest things will give us anxiety, you know, is if a man a street go create a most heinous crime and make the boy them change the law upon we, you know. And some man, if a man out the road go on with something so heinous that it change the law, some man will get mad upon him out the road. The boy they go and make man can't go home. But we totally forget say when we did out there. Some of us that do what them do, make them change the law upon them and them in a prison. But we don't want to hear that. We just concerned about when we in there and the man out the road are going with the antics and the law will get changed. It's the same thing when it comes to the development of the consciousness. All of us consciousness get developed at different speed, at different rate, at different time. So when the early messengers of Rastafari say certain things, but today we can refute and know say, nah man, that talk they can't sustain today. That was the well from which we all drawn. That was where the beginning was. Yeah. So to all of the early messengers of Rastafari, salute man. Enough respect man. Because that well they will get dig, trust me. Remember when me sip from it. And remember when me go that well there for sip. Make me go and experience when me go that well there go sip. I never go there for go sip from that well there. Cook the man them a cooking at the yard when you are little youth. And you know when pot put on, you want some. And you go around there and say, oh the man take so long to cook the ital stew star. Or the man hesitate so. They don't hurry up and the man them a reason and make the food go and simmer. And them a reason every time you go around there, although you go around there for the food as a little youth, you start pay attention to the reasoning. And you start hear about Africa. And you start hear about our ancestors. And you start hear about slavery. And you start to hear about our great national heroes. You see, after a while, you never remember the food. After a while, you don't remember the food. And the reasoning you go around the farm now, you say, yes, the water that we are spring forth, I want some I become thirsty. And that doctrine with the man they might give you that time there. And the sweet water that man. Sweet water to grist mind at that stage where with them man. And when you come out of that tenement yard there, you come out of that bingy yard there, you feel powerful, you feel like you could have pushed down anything. Straight talk. And that was the germination of the seed. That was the beginning of the journey, of the mental journey. Seed here, the seed come, the seed may have little impurities in it, but it has the ability to grow. And today, come one of my elders, if not my only elders from a little youth, was Rassi Historian, you know. Them time they were there 53 Last Street. Last Street corner with Mark Lane, one of the Rastafarian Movement Association, RMA. Yeah. Couldn't keep me out of the yard there. When the man they give me certain reason I youth and me push out on the street, and me run the street, man. Me run the street. Yeah, today now when me look up and that, so me say, alright, this that part they kind of shaky and that part they kind of shaky and that part they kind of shaky. But guess what? At the right journey you put me on. So make us remember that all the while. Let us remember that people scream for help at different ways. You know, so again, let me say this. Enough big up to my virgin in England, Jaboni, RC. Man, they quit me out when me come a road, man. Help me start up on the journey, upon a dream when me did that from prison. Give me all of my equipment then. Teach me things. Let me say something to with Jaboni. My great respect for Jaboni not come from nothing where ever give me. Or nothing where ever do for me. My great respect come from Jaboni when we meet him on think different. Jaboni is one of the few man them will ever show me say you can think different and be successful. You don't have to think in a prescribed societal doctrinal way to be successful. Jaboni will say something was totally left field and a bear fruit. I see that with my 2 eyes. I experience that. And it is a testament to them to which part him there for sure say with a liberated mind you can even be more successful than a colonial mind being rewarded by the colonial masters. Him teach me that among with a few other people. So big up to you, Jaboni, all the while, every time. And to the subscribers and listeners, divine love and blessings. Until next time. This is Gillie Priest Revolutionary Radio. Peace out.